Hi, my name's Harmony. My pronouns are they, them. I'm the founder of NBD Movement, and today we're going to talk about 3 reasons why we need a gender-expansive approach to dance. So I've got this outlined. I just wanted to share it. I'm going to leave this up for 24 hours and hopefully get this on shared on YouTube as well so that people can watch it later. But I hope to get this conversation started and moving and sharing it, because something that Hayden, and I think I need to find a better way to tag them. Hayden's an amazing dancer. I believe their Instagram name is at Hayden J. They posted about this a while ago about how, we don't have enough conversations within the dance community and as non-binary and trans dancers about how dance impacts us, and having a heavily gendered approach to dance excludes and can sometimes be really painful and harmful to trans and non-binary dancers. So I figure we add that in, talk about it, and I hope this gets shared. Hi, Just Evan. Hello. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm going to say that I started learning dance as an adult. I loved to dance as a little kid. I would jump around my best friend's room when I was growing up, listen to a lot of Spice Girls. It was a whole thing, but I loved moving. But then at some point I just felt like I didn't look like a dancer. I didn't feel like that was me. And so I stopped moving. I felt very disconnected with my body for most of my life. And then this would be in the last maybe 6 years or so, I picked up dance. And I started with pole dancing. I love pole dancing. It's really where I started connecting with movement in a more embodied, emotional way. And then from there, I started ballet last year. So I've been doing ballet for about a year now. And I enjoy freestyle and modern and ballet and all these things. And I'm just trying to learn more every day. So one thing that I got used to, especially going into pole class, for example, where it's mostly folks who are femme, I got mispronounced a lot. And on top of getting mispronounced a lot, there wasn't always a good time to check in with the teacher about pronouns. And then there was that kind of back and forth of do I just write it out? Do I just say something? Is it gonna, I'm just here to come to class. I don't want to be here teaching gender studies 101. It feels like it detracts from the space, and also it's labor on me that I am not here to give. I'm actually paying to be in class. And it's challenging because there were days, and sometimes even in new classes, where it makes me really anxious to go into new class spaces because I don't know if people are going to be cool. And there's sometimes when I just don't know if the teachers are going to create space, and I don't know if I'm going to get mispronounced all the time. So I don't know. So those things come up for non-binary dancers. So I had a lot of what the fuck moments in dance class. I'm just gonna level with everyone. There were a lot of what the fuck moments, especially when movements are described in a way that didn't resonate with me. It made me second guess whether or not I should be there. So if things are described as all right, this is a very feminine movement, there's this very, we're gonna go into a masculine energy, we're gonna go into a feminine energy, and that's it. It doesn't always describe in broader terms what might be going on, and also it's highly normative, isn't it? It's language that if I don't ascribe or perform that type of femininity or masculinity, and that's the prompt for the dance class, then do I really know how to pick up that cue? And sometimes it just meant that I don't come back to class, if I'm being really honest. So wrestling with that is something that I know that I'm not alone. I've talked to other folks about this, and it's really challenging to negotiate that space. But there are really practical, small things that dance spaces can do to be gender expansive. I should have described my terms too. I didn't define gender expansive. So gender expansive and gender inclusive are terms that I'll probably use interchangeably. But essentially the approach is to make space for and, in my case, center trans and gender non-conforming individuals by not assuming everybody's gender identity, and in the approach to dance and the way that we describe movement and teach movement, make space for different forms of gender identity, right? So that's my quick definition. It's not in particularly like a dictionary, but that's how I see it. And that's what I try to teach. So one of the things that I felt out of place. Feeling out of place happens, and it's not fun. Sometimes it can cause like dissociating. Sometimes it just puts me in a bad mood. And sometimes then, negative body talk, negative self-image, or just feeling intimidated by that space just gets amplified when you have this, again, gendered expectation of how you're supposed to move and look and perform. That's really what brought me towards freestyle. That's why, and so NBD. Hi, I didn't describe what NBD is. Non-binary dance as a project is this. The way that I see it is that freestyle is a way to access embodiment. Freestyle movement gives that open space for people to move their bodies the way that feels good for them, to let their bodies lead them towards movement, and then dance happens when we let ourselves move. And that's why I believe really strongly in it. Partly also, fun fact, I'm not very good at choreography. I'll do it, but I'm not the best at it, so I don't try to be. I'm working on it, but it's not my thing. But freestyle is a way to access this form of new movement and embodiment, and that's what I gravitated towards. I really love freestyle. I like being the weirdest dancer in the room. I can say with confidence that has been a compliment that I've taken to heart. And by saying weirdest dancer in the room, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to prove that I'm outdoing, because it's not about anyone else. You're not outdoing anyone else's performance or movement or whatever. But moving as yourself is unique. And if being unique is being weird, then I'm just super weird. And I'm okay with that. And I hope other people get okay with that too and find ways to access that acceptance, because lots of cool stuff happens when we move and dance and like find that exploration. But it's hard to do in a body that is marginalized in varying degrees. So let's talk about some stuff. Let's talk about that. So the one thing that I do want to say for the way that I teach class in particular, and yay, I love them. Thank you. I'm reading the comments as we go. I promise I'm going to come back to them, but thank you, Just Heaven. Just Heaven. Also, people should follow them because they're an amazing dancer and choreographer, if I'm not mistaken, but they do some amazing work. Quick plug. There you go. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that when we talk about dance and movement, it's not just like dance and movement are more than just like I'm moving my body to perform on a stage. Like there's healing that happens there. There's all these amazing expressions and art forms that are created through movement. So there's a lot to this. It means a lot to me. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. So I said 3 reasons. I'm going to start with reason number 1. Why do we need a gender expansive approach to dance? Well, right now, the approach is heavily gendered. So, what does that mean? Dance is cultural, right? Dance is about not just something in culture, creating culture, but it enforces cultural norms. Those norms are cis hetero norms. Those are norms that are prescriptive of like, how do we perform masculinity and femininity? What is an ideal masculine or feminine? And it's very binary, right? So participating in dance and learning these dance forms, a lot of times they do rely on that heavily binary approach. Now, the problem is if you don't fit in those norms, it can be really tricky to perform them. And not only is it just tricky, it's just uncomfortable. It can exclude folks, and it's limiting. So the way that I see it, that's why I like the term gender expansive, and shout out to Remix Your Style, my friend Miller, who is very, I think they were the first person I heard who used those terms, but give them a follow and learn from them because they're very, very smart. It's limiting to be so heavily binary that there's no space in between. There is art that we're missing because we're not looking in between. There are dancers that we're missing because they're not fitting into those two boxes. And ultimately it's quite stagnant, in my opinion. I think that it prevents that type of growth from moving forward. So some examples, right? I do ballet. So in ballet, there are specific female and male roles. If you are a female, if you are a woman, if you are a femme, your job is to pirouette, to spin, to be lifted, to be on point. There are those jobs, right? If you are a male, your job is to lift, your job is to jump, your job is to guide the female dancer, right? But what if it's not what you want to do? And also, what if you're not ascribing to the idea that, like, well, if I'm female, then I have to dance this way? What? Why? How would you? Why? There's other things we can do. And then on top of that, and it doesn't, I'm going to put this caveat there, it doesn't just come down to strength. I firmly do not believe that that's the only reason to keep enforcing these rules. No. That's a no for me. Another example of when we see this is that there, instead of, the male part in partner dance, the male part is the lead and the female part is the follow. Really easy fix around this. Instead of saying this is the male part and the female part, just say lead and follow. It's not harder. It doesn't take up more time. Everybody knows what it means. And then that way people can kind of self-identify and find their way into what dynamic they want in partner dance. So it leaves it open to everybody. It just puts it into the context of a role rather than a gendered enforcement. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So that's reason number one. We want to break the binary so that we can find more. Reason number two. Highly gendered dance spaces push people who are othered into other spaces. As in, highly gendered dance spaces literally push people out the door and out of the classroom, out of the studio, off the dance floor, and sometimes they don't come back. So I want to also kind of broaden this a little bit. It's not just about gender non-conforming, non-binary trans bodies and people, but also people who are, who have disabilities, people who have larger bodies, people who are fat, people who move differently than somebody who's like a slim, athletic dancer looking build, right? There's a lot of pressure to look a certain way as a dancer. And part of that comes back to reason number one, which is that it's a expectation from a cultural gender standpoint. So when we talk about pushing people out of the classroom, that's what I mean. We're missing amazing artists. We're missing people who have something to share, have something important to say, have something important to communicate and share with the world through their bodies, and the space itself is like, no, you do not belong here. And if that's not explicitly stated, that's implicitly how many folks feel. I will speak for myself, and I will say, yes, this is how I feel when spaces just prove to be really not looking out for the students. That's how I feel. So what are those outcomes? What does that look like? You get kids who are who love dance, and they drop out of dance classes, or they drop out of, or they stop going, or they quit because, there might come a time when there's a rehearsal, everyone's supposed to wear a certain type of outfit, and this, the kid realizes, like, this doesn't resonate with how I want to express myself. This feels uncomfortable. It feels like I'm being put into a box, and they quit. Other folks have again, I started dancing as an adult, so I don't have these experiences, but some folks have also communicated to me that, like, yeah, if you're a kid and you're, not fitting into the binary at home, it can be really, really tough. But it also means that there's extra pressure to act a certain way in dance class, and that can be a turnoff. On top of that, there might be pressure from the teachers to act in a certain way to be a good student, and that in itself can be pretty difficult to handle. That's a lot of pressure as a kid. And again, pushes people away. They may not return to dance. They may not, have anxiety around it, because dance is vulnerable. That's like your heart. You're moving through space. It's a vulnerable thing to do, to say, like, I'm dancing from the depths of my soul and it doesn't look right. It's hard, I think there's also this perception, this is what I've noticed from teaching through NBD, is that it's hard when folks don't see themselves in the dance world, people who look not cis-normative, hetero-normative. When you don't see yourself out there, how do you claim that as your identity? And I've had people talk to me about how, like, they don't feel like they're a dancer because they don't look like what they see. They don't look like what they would understand as a dancer. But I'm like, if you're moving your body and you're expressing yourself through movement, you're a dancer, God damn it. So claim it, call it. I did, and it's hard, and I still have to, like, remind myself that, like, yes, you can do it, and you don't have to keep, like, saying I'm a dancer, but I did this and this and this, and I'm not really, and I haven't gotten paid for, these types of gigs and whatever. It doesn't mean anything to, how do I want to say this? When you claim it and you say it, you can keep engaging in it in whatever way you want. You define that term for yourself. And I think that's permission that I'm hoping other people hear and run with, is that, like, as gender non-conforming and trans folks, you have permission to be a dancer. You have permission to dance in your body. You have permission to make up these dances and move the way that only you can move. And if you're not moving the way you can move, then the whole fucking universe is missing out, because there's no one else who can do it. It's only you. So that's really what I'm trying to say. When we don't have these conversations within dance spaces, we miss this. We miss all of it. And these stories are never told. So let's go to reason number 3, and I'll wrap this up. The third reason that I wanted to talk about, so the reason that we need a gender expansive approach to dance is because dance can access and unlock healing around trauma and healing around emotional hurts, healing, like, the heart, healing the soul, healing ancestral, intergenerational shit, like, all this stuff that's locked in our bodies. We can move and we can heal through dance. I believe this really, really hard, and I'm going to just cite some references really quick. So, The Body Keeps Score is a fantastic book about how the body holds somatic trauma, and the somatic psychotherapy workbook is something that I use as well to inform classes, and we take some of those exercises to help people ground and find access to what are the messages that our bodies communicate when we move. And really, that's healing. There's healing in there, right? And when we don't have these spaces, people are either being pushed out or told that they're not supposed to be there, or feel that they're not supposed to be there. That's one less tool in the toolkit towards I don't want to say like a better life, but towards healing, towards possibly like, healing is important. And embodied healing is important, and we deserve to be kind to our bodies, and we deserve to live in our bodies and feel in our bodies. And if that tool is taken away because it doesn't feel, that we look like we're a dancer, or we're not supposed to dance because the space is not for us, that takes something really major away. It doesn't mean that healing is impossible. It doesn't mean that at all. But I have found that there are some things that are really hard to communicate with words, and there are some things that I can move emotions and stuck feelings through movement, sometimes better than talking it out, even with my therapist. So it really robs the community of a way to access our own bodies, and the healing that's within. So can you tell that I feel strongly about this? I really do. So that's what I wanted to share for today. I'm going to wrap up, but I also wanted to let y'all know what's next. So here's some things coming up for me. We're not doing any more workshops for the rest of this year. But starting in January, I'm working on a 6-part series that would cover, I'm looking at a space in Long Beach, so Long Beach folks, let me know, to try out some new curriculum, and also to hopefully build a little bit more continuity, because that's important. I think, having continued access to dance spaces is important, so I'm trying to find a way to do this sustainably and keep it in a local spot. And I'm also working on developing a handbook and an implementation guide for dancers, dance teachers, and studio owners. So these principles that we were just talking about, these reasons why, have actionable steps attached to them on how to make your space more gender expansive. Or if you're a student navigating those, what are the things to look for, and what are the ways that you can take care of yourself, but also feel emboldened, feel empowered to claim this title as a dancer, claim this identity, and to move with it. So those are the things. Is that all I wanted to say? I think that's about it. Oh, and please share these things. All of the work that I've been putting out has been through Instagram only. I'm working on other avenues, but it's really, really helpful when these conversations get disseminated out, shared, talked about, discussed. Just please share. And if you are a studio owner or teacher and you want to learn a little bit more, reach out to me, please, and I would love to talk. And if you are a trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming dancer and you want to talk about some stuff, let me know as well, because I'm here for you. So I hope to see conversation. I hope to see things being shared. I'm looking forward to more conversations like this, and I will see you on the dance floor. Bye.